Hi everyone. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to talk about the fact that I recorded this video last night, and then this morning, at 2:20 in the morning, the LA Valiant had a new player announcement, which was Ezon, a DPS player from Team CC. So when I recorded this video last night, I talked about him because he was mentioned in Rumors from Halo of Thoughts, so he will be mentioned in this video. I just wanted to put this disclaimer at the front to say that he is referred to in this video as a rumored signing, but he is now an official signing, and I figured I would make that clear here before I get into the actual video so that you have that context when you're watching the video that it is no longer a rumor, it is official, he is on the team, that's all. Here is now further past me to talk to you about the LA Valiant. Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we are finally going to do that LA Valiant roster breakdown video, even though technically nothing has changed since the last time that I had kind of said I was going to push it back. There are rumors about this roster. I was going to kind of wait until we saw some more developments surrounding those rumors, but they do not appear to be coming soon, and I would like to get this video out before too late, so let's go, let's dive in, let's break down this LA Valiant roster, talk about some of the rumors that are a part of this whole lineup as well, and let's jump into it. So here is the roster that they have publicly announced. They have 3 support players in Dia, Innovation, and Becky, and 2 support players in Coldest and Lengsa. A number of these guys, of course, Dia, Coldest, and Lengsa with Overwatch League experience, and a few of these guys are rookies. Another big change to this team, of course, is in their coaching staff. They have a new head coach in NoHill, who is someone who has been very, very, very highly regarded in the Overwatch scene for a little while, as well as Woo Hyol as an assistant coach. There were some rumors originally about him being a part of the actual roster and being a player coach, but the reports now are just that he is there just as a coach, and that they have a different Overwatch League veteran as their actual tank player. So let's start with the DPS, talk about the things that we know about the DPS, and I'll talk about the rumored DPS player to be joining this team after that. So the first DPS player we have is Dia, of course best known for his time on the Shanghai Dragons, known for being offered a spot on this roster last season, but declining because he didn't really want to join a team where he felt like there really wasn't much of an opportunity for anything to happen. He basically saw the roster and said, I won't do anything if I'm on that team. My opportunities are actually going to be pretty poor, so I'm just going to wait until a better opportunity arises. And now the LA Valiant with NoHill appear to be a more competitive roster, appear to actually have something put together, and so Dia is using this as his opportunity to join the league once again. One of those Season 1 veteran players has been around for a long time. Is kind of one of the most kind of popular and highly regarded Chinese players in the Overwatch League and the history of the Overwatch League. So great to see him coming back. Of course, his hit scan is very, very well regarded. He's incredibly mechanically talented. We know that. His Widow, his Cassidy, his Hanzo, his Ashe, all very, very good. He also plays some Tracer, which is good as well. And you have other DPS players to kind of support him. You have Innovation, who's another hit scan player, though he also plays a bit of Mei and Sombra, which are things that you won't see out of Dia. So he does play some of that Cassidy, Tracer, Widowmaker, he does have a little bit more of a diverse hero pool, can play some other things as well. Innovation coming to this team from Team CC, where he actually was a coach and a player. So he kind of filled both of those roles. So he's a bit of that leadership type of figure. Don't think he'll be the most... I don't think he'll get the most playtime. I think Dia will be the predominant hit scan player, but Innovation may come in whenever they need a Mei player, or if there's ever a reason with a Tracer heavy meta. I don't know if he's their best Tracer. They have somebody else's better Tracer, but We could maybe see innovation, but I don't think he'll be as prominent on this roster as, say, Dia, who I think will be the primary kind of playmaker, hit scan player for this roster. And then you have Becky, who is the most likely flex DPS player. So this roster is kind of bizarre because I don't think outside of Dia, I don't really feel like the players they got are among some of the best in the league. And I'm sure some of that is just because there are a number of players who didn't want to go to this team after what kind of happened last season. You know, people saw that. They saw that what this roster was. And while NoHill is highly respected and he is highly regarded, there is a possibility that that the team still found it difficult to kind of recruit free agents. There's some rumors that Exy was going to join this team, then he decided not to join the team. And then there's rumors of them signing in Mike Haley and then Mike Haley leaving the team. So there's a lot of kind of like bizarre like ups and downs. Just part of the reason why I was really hesitant to make a video talking about rumors, because they have had really up and down luck with these rumored signings where some players were rumored to join and then left, and then rumored to join and then left. And it's a whole thing where it's really difficult to kind of tell exactly what this roster is as a result of that. But I think this DPS line is pretty good. There is a fourth DPS player rumored to be on this roster, which is Ezhan, or Izan, I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, from Team CC, who is another predominantly hit scan player. So this team seems to be prepared for a lot of double hit scan. I don't really know much about him. I know that there was reported interest in from the Houston Outlaws in Ezhan as a player, but they opted not to sign him with merit instead. Maybe that wasn't true, I don't know, but he is a name that has been floating around for a while, and he is rumored to also be joining this roster. It's bizarre because you already have Innovation, who plays a lot of those same heroes, and Dia, who plays a lot of those same heroes. So I don't really know why they're bringing him in. Maybe they feel like he is better on some other heroes that they don't have. I really couldn't tell you. I haven't really watched much of Ezhan play. Like I said, most recently with Team CC, spent time with Genji as well before that. So he's been around for a bit. 2020 really, 2021. I am really struggling to speak today. Has been kind of his time frame. He hasn't been around for a super long time. He's an interesting addition to this roster, assuming that he is joining this roster. I really don't know what to make of what they're doing with the DPS role. They seem to essentially be saying we need really good hit scan players, and then we'll fill in the blank with the flex, whether it be Innovation on the Mei and the Sombra, or Becky on the Doomfist, Ezhan on the Symmetra. They have something there, but it feels a little odd. Maybe Becky has a more diverse hero pool than what Liquipedia is giving him credit for, and I'm sure he does have the ability to play more than just what Liquipedia says. It's just something that you'll see, they just kind of focus on the heroes that these players have kind of had the most playtime on professionally, but maybe there's more there that we haven't seen. As we move into the support line, though, we get to see some interesting returning players. We have Coldest, of course, used to be a member of the Hangzhou Spark. In fact, was a member of the Hangzhou Spark the past 2 seasons. And we have Lengsa, who spent last season as a member of Team Chaser, the Chengdu Hunters Academy team. Of course, he spent time on the Chengdu Hunters in 2020, and then also was with LGE Huya before that, and some other teams in Chinese contenders. I really like this duo. I think this is a good, solid support line. I feel far more confident in this support line than I did in the support line they put together last season. I have a lot of questions with this DPS line. Well, I think there are some talented players on this DPS line, right? I still have a lot of questions. The support line to me is not a question at all. It is a very solid support line that has pretty solid coverage of pretty much everything you would expect and would want. I'm kind of surprised they didn't go with Coldest and Mika, considering they played together for a while, though I think Lengsa is also a very good player, so I kind of can see why they opted to go for Lengsa. And I think Lengsa's hero pool is a little bit better, so that's probably why they went with Langsa over Mika, but I do like this support line. Coldest, of course, is your flex support. He's going to play your Zen, your Ana, and probably some Moira, maybe some BAP whenever needed. But Langsa is a very, very, very flexible support player, right? So he's going to be the guy who has to play the Mercy or the Brig or the Lucio when need be, but he also can play the BAP and he can play the Zen. So if you have to run a Zen Ana composition or you have to run a BAP Ana or a BAP Zen, Langsa is going to be able to fill in those holes that you don't have by having, or that you would, the holes that open up by not having a second support player, second flex support player. You have Langsa who can fill in at least, and he can play pretty much anything you need him to be. He obviously has better heroes. Obviously his main support heroes are somewhat better. You know, like his Brig, his Lucio, and his Mercy are generally going to be higher regarded than his Zen and his Ana and his BAP. But he can play them, and that's very important, is that he can play them, and I think he'll get better at them as the season progresses. I don't think there's going to be a dominant support line. There are definitely places where they will be more comfortable, you know, certain metas that they'll perform better in than others. That's to be expected. That is pretty usual for support lines in general. But when you look at this support line, I do think that there is genuine, solid, consistent veteran presences here who maybe didn't get the most playtime when they were in the league, right? Coldest sat behind Bebe for a bit, and then sat behind MCD last season, and then Langsa never really unbenched Yveltal when they were on the Chengdu Hunters. But they were on those rosters for a reason. They were players that had potential and that were there for very good reason, and they were strong players that performed very, very well in the contenders and then in the Overwatch League as a whole. So we didn't see a lot of them, unfortunately, but I think they're players who, there is a lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns, but I feel relatively confident here. I don't feel like these are huge risks. I don't feel like there's a glaring weakness or a glaring hole, which is a major improvement from last year's LA Valiant roster, where they had players playing off roles. They were a bad team. They are arguably still to this day the worst Overwatch team we've ever seen. I think that when you compare their performance to the 0-40 Shanghai Dragons, the 0-40 Shanghai Dragons were probably a better team, but because it was a 40-game season, looks worse than this Valiant roster from last season, and their 16 game season where they lost all the games. Didn't look as bad in that regard, but I think the overall performance, and they won 2 maps of the entire year, was pretty bad. So I think this support line is a major upgrade from last season's support line. I think this roster has done a lot to kind of bolster where they were very weak last season and strengthen themselves. Because I thought DPS was pretty fine for them last year. I thought Crystal played relatively well, and Milanrin played relatively well. It was really that the tank line and the support line were just not comfortable. They were off-rolling. They were basically playing at a disadvantage every single fight as a result of that. And so they won 2 maps all season because they were just that bad. They're not going to be that bad this year, though I still don't think they are looking to be a dominant kind of top-of-the-table team. Now, obviously, as you saw from the beginning of this video when I first showed the roster, they don't have a tank player signed to this roster, at least publicly. There are, however, rumors that the tank player that the team will be adding is Sashin, who formerly played for the Hangzhou Spark from 2019 to 2020. Didn't really play all that much. Once again, very similar to Coldest and Langsa, did not get a lot of playtime. He was known especially for his Zarya play. That's really what he was most known for. And playing a lot of DPS, because that's what he played before he switched to off-tank. So he's not a huge player in terms of his history on the tank role. He was a DPS player that ended up playing Zarya and Sigma, and that's really it. So I don't really know what to expect from him. I think this is a bizarre signing. There were rumors, like I said, that NoHill was going to be a player and a coach, and then they just opted to make him just a coach. And Sashin is a tank player they're going for. I hope they're planning on signing another tank. There's no rumors of them signing any other tank right now. This is the only tank player currently rumored to be on this roster, which, if that is the case, I would be very concerned about this team's ability to succeed, because I don't really think Sachin is a super consistent or someone who I would consider to be a very reliable player on the tank role. There's a difference between off tank. I think he could be just fine on off tank and Zarya, Zarya meta, if Zarya ever was, a main part of the Overwatch 2 meta. I think that Sachin would be very good, and I think that would be a really good, solid piece to have. But I don't expect that to really happen, and that's where I'm concerned about him being their only tank for this roster. And that really is the main thing that I have concerns about with this roster. I don't, unlike last season, where last season the problem was they had players in just bizarre places on bizarre roles. They had, an off tank playing main support and a flex DPS player playing off tank because a player they wanted to sign, they couldn't because the whole thing with Immortals, and so they ended up just with this really bizarre roster of the bare minimum, where a coach was a player, but he was never going to play because he was a coach. They don't really have that apparent issue this season where they have players in just bizarre places that don't make any sense and whatnot. But the problem with this roster this time around is that they just don't look very inspiring. Dia's a really good player, and I'm excited for Dia to be back, and he does inspire some confidence in me, and NoHill as a coach inspires some confidence in me. It's the same type of issue that we talk about where we just, I would like to see the Valiant just sell this team slot to somebody else. They want to wait, of course. They probably won't sell it, but if they do, they're going to wait until Overwatch 2 comes out. They see what Overwatch 2 is like. They see if the league kind of blows up. If there's interest and popularity booms for this league slot will become way more valuable in that moment. If it doesn't blow up and it doesn't become way more valuable like that, they're going to keep holding on to it until it does become something that is worth the investment they put into it back when they bought this league slot. So this roster is really bizarre, and it's really interesting. It's definitely one that I was higher on at first when it was first getting announced, mainly because I think I looked at this roster and just thought this roster has some kind of direction to it, unlike last season's, which was just thrown together and a bunch of players that literally made no sense. But I still don't love this roster. I still think they're probably the weakest roster in the APAC region. I think they'll be significantly better than they were last season. This isn't a team that we're going to be looking at and being like, wow, they won a map. This is a team we're going to say, wow, they are actually able to win games. You are not going to be able to just roll up on this team, I think, with, basically rolling out of bed and rolling over this team because they are, completely outmatched and not playing what they're supposed to. There's actually, well-known players this time around, fan-favorite players, popular players, players with history, players Dia is a very popular player. Even Western fans are fans of Dia, and Chinese fans are fans of Dia. So Dia is a player who brings fans to this team, potentially. And so I look at this roster, I look at this team. Obviously, this team's history has been up and down. They have fallen from grace very, very wildly from their original days back in 2018. But I do think there is a bright light at the end of the tunnel for this roster. There is a shining little bit of threading that brings this roster together, where this roster is not going to be a complete monumental failure. At least it shouldn't be. Last year, we predicted the Valiant to be as bad as they were last year, and they were arguably worse than people even predicted them to be. And this time around, they look to at least be more competitive than what they were last season. They have some pieces that are looking pretty good. They have some pretty solid pieces in general. And so I think that this is a roster that I personally feel more confident in. I don't think they're going to be favorites, but I definitely think that they should be much better than we saw from them last season. That's it for me for today. Those are my thoughts on this roster. Let me know your thoughts on this team in the comments down below. Do you like this roster, not like this roster? Agree with me, disagree with me, whatever it is. Let me know down below. I'd love to hear from you. That's going to be all from me for today. Thank you all for watching all of these roster breakdown videos. Thank you all. It means a lot. Your support of these videos is amazing, and you guys are the best. That's all for me for today. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye bye.